Hello and good night, beautiful Tobago loyal listeners. Thanks for joining once again. It's Monday, and that means there's another edition of For the Hour, where we discuss everything Tobago and everything concerning Tobago. Thank you for joining us once again. My name is Edison Thomas, filling in for the lovely Glendora Lashley. Glendora, we wish you back. Your fans miss you. We hope that you come back soon. All right. Until then, you're still stuck with me. All right. So I was just talking to the producers, and I suggested to the producers maybe we need to do a big up and shine up segment on For the Hour, because there are situations in Tobago that deserve big ups, and there's situations in Tobago that deserve shine up. Shine up is the positive shine up is the negative in the local parlance. Big up is the positive. All right. So, but I will take the initiative and introduce it impromptu on my own. All right. So I want to big up, first things first, the workers inside who work on the fast ferry itself. My wife and I recently, we had a journey coming up from Trinidad over the weekend, and the ride, as we know as Tobagonians, the ride to return to Tobago is not a nice one. And today it was not nice at all. And so the staff was able to see the discomfort that my wife and my family and my daughter was in. And they came to us and they offered us some smelling salts, and, you know, they gave us the bags and little napkins and stuff to help us in case of emergencies. And that helped us a great deal. So big ups to you, to the staff on this fast ferry, right? You deserve that that big ups. Shine up now. So I was supposed to return to Tobago on Sunday. However, Sunday turned to Monday, and I cannot understand why Sunday turned to Monday when I have a confirmed ticket for myself, my family, and my vehicle to return on the fast ferry from Trinidad. All right? I came on time to check in. We were not allowed in to the loading area on the port in Trinidad. We were made to wait in our cars without giving any communication as to why we were there. And the most infuriating thing was that there was a line. There was a point we realized, okay, they're not letting one person on for some reason. And there was a line of persons waiting, cars waiting to enter that port. And they were letting people on regardless of who was in the line. Fronting, nepotism, I don't know what it is that happened, but it was very infuriating to be the person next in line to go onto the boat, only to have the door shut in your face and told, we are not accommodating anybody else, even though you have a confirmed ticket that was bought a month in advance. That is ridiculous. All right? And I am tired, frankly very tired, experiencing these very big faux pas on the Port Authority in Trinidad when I'm just trying to get home. And this is a big issue for Tobagonians. When you live on this island and you have to deal with the Port Authority, not for vacation, but on a regular basis when you have to come home, it is ridiculous to have to deal with this all the time. I have seen, or I have experienced rather, where you have to go and stand up under tents like refugees just to come home to the place where you live. This is ridiculous. And Port Authority are getting shine up today, especially the Port Authority in Trinidad. You need to get your act together and bring in line the experience that you get on the ferry itself, because I maintain that is a good experience and they try their best on the ferry, right? To what the process to get on the ferry as well. It cannot be two chalk and cheese experiences. This is a traveling public. We are paying. You are saying that the government is saying that we're going to increase the fare to travel between the islands, and still we are subjected to this kind of horrible service. All right? So take your shine up today, Port Authority in Trinidad. Get it right. Right? Get it right. Okay, so that was big up and shine up. I don't know what we're going to come again with next week, but if it is that we get another big up and shine up next week, we'll come again with it. All right? So, as I tell the producers again, this place in Tobago is too small for all this drama. And so, for a small island, we constantly have drama going on in this space. And so last week we had the resignations, which is fairly well known now. We had the resignations of the 13 assemblymen, all right, from the political party, the PDP. And now we are dealing with what are the ramifications of those, or the implications of that decision of those members or assemblymen to leave the party, all right? And it brings about a lot of discussions in this space, which I really appreciate. And it allows me then now to invite some of the biggest and brightest minds that we have on this island. And I'm so proud to have been hosting this show, to be amongst such brilliant minds that we have here, right here locally, who could really give different perspectives on any situation that is going on and break it down for the public really to understand. All right. So we're going to go to the panel now. Firstly, we have Leroy George, who is the Secretary of Civil Net, no stranger to the show. All right. And we also have Mr. Jason Arthur, who is a political, what's the term I used here?
Maybe just commentator is fine.
Political commentator. That's beautiful. All right. And both of these gentlemen have, again, no strangers to the Tobago space, and they both have their opinions to share on what are the implications of the resignations of the assemblymen. All right. So first things first, we're gonna go into the legal side of it, and Mr. Arthur was actually here in a subsequent program, which we found that he laid out quite clearly and succinctly the difference between the standing orders in the THA, the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago, the THA Act, and the standing orders already that is in place in the Parliament. So we're going to play that clip for you just to frame up what it is that those particular documents mean in terms of what we are currently experiencing. Producer, we have the clip.
Right. So I think part of the issue here is that there isn't a clear distinction between one set of documents versus the other set of documents. So the first set of documents we're talking about are the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago and the THA Act. Now, the THA Act itself is a part of the Constitution. Yeah?
Correct.
So those are the two documents we're talking about on one side. On the other side, we're talking about the standing orders of the Tobago House of Assembly and the standing orders of the House of Representatives in Trinidad. Yeah? Okay. The THA Act, I'm just going to use the Act for now. The THA Act defines what things are. For instance, what's a minority leader? What's a chief secretary? Blah, blah, blah. To include, how does an assemblyman demit office? Right? That's the Act. The standing orders are, or is, the document that says, how do we function within the assembly? When we meet, who talks first? Who talks second? If a question is asked, how is the question supposed to be phrased? Blah, 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 blah. Right? Those are the standing orders. So that's the Act, the standing orders. Similarly, in Trinidad, you have the Constitution that defines who can be a representative, blah, 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 same kind of thing. And then you have standing orders. They have their own standing orders as well. Okay? Now, what's going on is that there is a section within the House of Assembly's standing orders, section 92, that says, if we meet up something in our day-to-day operations that we have never seen, we will look to refer to the practice of the standing orders of the House of Representatives, not the Constitution. It is in the Constitution where they define how somebody gets removed from the House of Representatives. But we are not looking, our standing orders are not looking to the Constitution. Our standing orders are saying, if we meet up something that we haven't seen, we will refer to the standing orders of the House of Representatives. And let me make another point. The standing orders of the House of Representatives, you know what it says about itself? If it sees something, or if it meets something in the day-to-day operations of the House of Representatives that it hasn't seen, you know what it has said that it will do? It will look to the standing orders of the House of Commons in the UK. Now, you can't tell me that what they're actually saying is that they're going to look to the laws of the UK. We have our own laws. You understand? So anybody who is trying to pretend that they don't understand what this stuff means, they're engaging in not misinformation, disinformation. I am trying to mislead you. That is all.
So in your estimation, you're saying that the comparative is seeking a guidance, so to speak. And just to refer to this very clearly, this is Section 92
Yes.
of the Tobago House of Assembly Standing Orders, which indicate that in any matter not herein provided for, report shall be had to the usage and practice of the House of Representatives, which shall be followed as far as the same may be applicable to the Assembly and not inconsistent with these standing orders nor with the practice of this Assembly. So you are saying comparatively for you, based on your interpretation, is that the guidance is to be sought through the said standing orders of the House of Representatives of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago.
And I am saying this is not my interpretation. If you read number 2, right? Read number 2.
And number 2 goes on to say, in the case of doubt, the standing orders of the Assembly shall be interpreted in light of the relevance, usage, and practice of the House of Representatives. And then it goes on to say, no restrictions, as item 3, no restrictions which the House of Representatives has introduced by standing orders shall be deemed to the extent...
So let me interrupt you. It says, no restrictions as introduced by the standing orders of the House of Representatives. Not the TNT Constitution, the standing orders of the House of Representatives. You just read it. So I'm not interpreting it. It literally says it. If you refuse to read that part and you cherry pick, then you could end up in a scenario where people are interpreting. It literally says it right there. I'm not interpreting it. This is not my opinion. It's right there.
All right. And we just had Mr. Jason Arthur explaining the legal side and the differences of the standing orders, the THA Act, the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago, and the standing orders of the Parliament in Trinidad. All right. So we framed that up quite nicely for the viewers so that we could have a good basis upon which to carry this discussion. All right. And so we're going to push this now to the panel. And firstly, I'm going to go to Mr. George. Because we didn't get input from him on the legal standpoint from this situation. So, Mr. George, what do you think about the situation from the legal standpoint?
Well, it seemed pretty clear-cut to me, right? You have the standing order 92, as Mr. Jason Arthur would have pointed out, directs you whenever a situation isn't clear-cut in the Tobago House of Assembly. When that happens, then you go to the practices. And if you look at the wording, you'd see wording practices. I think something like custom and practices, and that is very important to take note of.
Right.
Because if this situation goes to the judiciary, right, or goes through the judicial system for clarification where interpretation is concerned, then after it passes through the different court systems in Trinidad and Tobago, because I suspect, irrespective of whatever finding any particular court finds in Trinidad and Tobago, it will reach the King's Council, right? And once it gets to the King's Council, what is very important to understand is that the House of Commons, it operates not so much like how we strictly operate under our Constitution, but it looks at practices. It looks at what is norm, right? And of course, that is a good thing in many ways because you look at what is tried and true, right? And when you consider that, whatever finding the Privy Council has, it will then have ripple effects on how this situation is handled everywhere where the Westminster system is used. Right?
Okay.
And as a result of that, I think that they are going to give a verdict that is in tune with the spirit of the Westminster system. And I don't believe that that verdict is guaranteed to go in the direction of saying, okay, Tobago trying a new thing, etc., etc. And as a result of that, anyone that would suggest that clearly there will not be a re-election, I would say I would not share that situation with them. Not to say that I think that a re-election should happen, not to say that I think it would happen, but this is not a clear-cut situation. It is gray area, and I believe it will lead in the direction of a re-election once you start getting closer and closer to Westminster practices.
Okay, all right. So I want to also make an input from the legal standpoint. We know that politicians are court closed by default, right? It's one of the things you have to have when it is that you are in public life and in public service. You have to have court closed. All right. Now, I am not certain of any situation or any correspondence that, the minority party right now, the largest minority party will be the PNM, right? Did they bring anything before the courts about this matter to get interpretation from this matter? Because I distinctly remember, right, when Mr. Duke was sworn in as deputy chief secretary, and even though he had already given his resignation as a date, right, in the near future, the PNM was quick to rush to the courts, right, to get legal opinion on legal matter for it to be tried there, right? And I have not seen, no, even in this situation, that was forthcoming. So is it that they know that they don't have a legal leg to stand on?
So let me jump in for a second. So I think after having watched the video, I think Mr. George really misses the point. The situation that we are talking about right now is what happens to an assemblyman who leaves his party. That is defined in the THA Act.
Right.
The standing orders is a separate thing. The standing orders of the THA says, if we find something in the day-to-day operations of the THA that we don't understand, we will go to the standing orders in Trinidad or the House of Representatives. So this thing about going to the standing orders doesn't make sense simply because the issue we are talking about is something in the Act.
Yeah.
The Act doesn't go to the standing orders for reference. You understand?
Right.
The standing orders just says how we operate during the day, blah, 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 when we're doing our work and so forth.
Right. So the answers that we're looking for is not contained in...
No, right?
Okay.
It is in the Act. And the Act defines how an assemblyman demits office.
Right.
In Trinidad, the Constitution tells you how a representative demits office. In Trinidad, if a representative leaves or resigns his party or is expelled from the party, he automatically loses his seat because in the Constitution, it says so. Correct. Right? And it started saying so in 1978.
Right.
It didn't say so before 1978. So what that means is this, or at least what it meant, is that before 1978, if you resigned your party, you didn't have to demit office in terms of being an MP. So if you wanted, or if they wanted, Eric Williams or whoever it was wanted that to happen, they had to put it in law.
Right.
What I'm saying is, well, the same thing would apply to the THA Act. If you want somebody to demit office if they resign their party, then you'd have to put it in the Act in the same way you did it in Trinidad. So it wasn't done. So there's no question. That's it. It's done.
And to ask a question, is this practice common in the Westminster system in the House of Commons, where someone probably crosses the floor or declares themselves independent and have to give up their seat as a result? Is that common practice there?
So what I'm going to say is this. I'm not going to answer based on the Westminster system because there are a number of places in the world that use the Westminster system. Okay. Right? Clearly the places that the UK had as colonies and so forth or whatever. But in terms of the UK itself, there is no law against crossing the floor.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
Australia, there is no law against crossing the floor.
Right.
And many other territories, there is no law
Against
against crossing the floor.
That rhyme. I like that because
Some territories do have it, eh?
yes.
Right?
I like what you
And-
said there because about the Westminster system. Because when I listen, well, we know Hocha has been talking about it since time immemorial, right?
Right.
And one of the things that he was saying is that Tobago has one of the most unique democratic systems in the world, and it was done so by design. And when it is that we are taking the system of Tobago and juxtaposing it to what goes on in Trinidad, we are calling a fowl when it's really a rabbit, right? It's not the same. And so we don't play by the same rules, all right? Leroy, I saw that he was looking, so he wanted to weigh
Yeah,
in.
we went off on two tangents really quickly, right? First tangent is where Mr. Arthur would have said that it is clearly stated what happens in the Tobago House of Assembly Act when someone crosses the floor, right? That is not true, right? The Tobago House of Assembly Act only mentions political parties on 3 occasions. On one of those occasions, they weren't even talking, well, they mentioned party on 3 occasions. On one of those occasions, clearly they were not even mentioning political parties, right?
Right.
As we all know,
In a sense,
the
yeah.
Tobago House of Assembly Act, it recognizes assemblymen and it does not recognize political parties.
Correct.
Right? So to say that when crossing the floor, the act is clear on that, that is not the case at all. And that is where you get the gray area that makes open the possibility of Standing Order 92 kicking into place. I want to also point out that we also have another part of the Constitution, which is Act 4 of 1976, right? And if you look into Act 4 of 1976, which in some ways is kind of like, just as the Tobago House of Assembly Act tells us how the Tobago House of Assembly is to be managed. Act 4 of 1976, it tells us how Parliament, all the government systems within Parliament, judiciary, legislative, etc., function. And in there, you could see clearly that nothing that is done, right, by the Tobago House of Assembly or any sub-government could override what is in the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. And with that being the case, we see that in the case where in Trinidad, someone crossing the floor could result in their seat being vacated, we have a clear indication of that being the case. But as you said, just as Mr. Hocha Charles said, one is a rabbit, one is a chicken. It's a fowl, right? And as a result of that, it is gray area. This is going to go to the judicial system. Now let's get off of that tangent that we went and deal with the question that you asked originally. The question that you asked originally is, why did the People's National Movement, well, the Minority Council either or the Minority Council is represented by the People's National Movement. Why are we not seeing any indication that they are the ones that are going to take this matter to court? And I think the answer is simple. If you pay attention to the intricacies of the different developments that are unfolding in front of us, it seems to me very clear that if this matter goes to court, it would not go to court as a result of the People's National Movement. It would happen as a result of the PDP itself, right? The PDP itself, if this matter is taken to court, remember you heard it here first, it's going to probably go to court as a result of the PDP, because the PDP would be the one that would be making the claim that we, as an organization, which includes its members, have been defrauded of our rightful status in situations. These persons would have used our organization to get into power. There's the PDP constitution, right? Which all the persons who recently resigned would have co-signed to when they became members, right? Because that constitution was ratified on the 25th of November in 2019. Most of those persons were already members by that time. Even the ones that came after that. Once you decide to be a member, you decide to go with the Constitution. And the PDP Constitution does delve into the THA. So there is a social contract and understanding that exists between the PDP the organization, and the persons that were representing the PDP in the Tobago House of Assembly.
Okay.
Right? And so that is where I believe the legal ramifications of the court case may come out from.
Okay. All right, going to you, Mr. Ate. Have anything to add to that, to what he just said?
No. I think what I said was clear enough.
All right, so I recently read an article by Mr. Hamigani, I think his name was, on the Guardian, as to why is it that we have that now enshrined in our constitution that if someone the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago, that is, if someone crosses the floor, that it's supposed to go vacant, right? The seat goes vacant. And basically, what he was saying is that there was a situation back in Dr. Eric Williams' time, and who was the then leader, and also the leader of the opposition, where there were a number of persons declaring themselves independent, and for worry of them deposing and filing motions of no confidence, he then, with the leader of the opposition at the time, came up with that situation, that kind of workaround, that now kind of allows the party to retain the seat of power in that district. Is not something that came down from a system from outside. It was a situation where it was a political move, I should say, right? Enshrining the constitution to keep power within the party that originally won it, all right? And it does not kind of confer independence upon the persons or the representatives or MPs that won the seat in the first place. But there are movements, or there have been movements amongst the Commonwealth that sought to retain the independence of persons who ran in these districts and won. And even if they want to cross the floor, they could cross the floor with those seats in their hands, right? So that was mainly, I know that's a long preamble, but that was mainly the essence of what Mr. Ghani said, right? So seeing as though it was not brought down from any outside institution or any well-established institution, right? The crossing of the floor practice, having to give up your seat. What do you then now say about ours being a unique to Trinidad, THA Act being unique to Trinidad, right? And not having to also bring that practice here. You want to go first?
Yeah, I'm going to go first, and I think we need to go. I don't want to say go back. I think I need to lay some more groundwork, right? Because there are a lot of people talking about, the moral arguments and so forth or whatever, and they're starting this morality game where it's convenient to start. So let's talk a little bit about what I hinted about last week when I was on the show. I said that this very system that we have, the Westminster system, that was given to us, or we borrowed, or whatever the case may be.
Sorry to cut you. This being Trinidad and Tobago?
Yes, Trinidad and Tobago,
right.
Right? This very system that we have confers more power on our politicians than it confers on the politicians of the country that we got it from, the UK. And any other big geographical space that uses this system, their leaders don't have as much power. And let me explain what I mean. In Trinidad and Tobago, when we were in school, we learned that you have three branches of government, three branches. You have the executive, right? The Prime Minister and his ministers and the ministries.
The legislative.
You have the legislative, which is made up of the upper and the lower house, House of Representatives, Senate. And you have a judiciary. Those are three arms of government. Now, one of the things that you don't want to happen is for any one person or any one group of persons to be able to control more than one arm of government.
Yes.
And you don't want that because of the abuse. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. Yeah?
Yes.
Right. Now, here's the problem we have in Trinidad and Tobago. The Prime Minister controls his executive.
Right. He also controls.
Right? Now, the Parliament, the Prime Minister has more senators that he can recommend than everybody else. Right? So by virtue of that, I put you there in the Senate, I control you to a large degree. right? You're
And I can
beholden
take you
to
out too.
Right.
Yeah.
You're beholden to me. In the House of Representatives, he became Prime Minister because of the fact that most of the MPs, or most of the seats that were won, are his MPs.
Right.
He takes those MPs and he makes those MPs ministers. And if he has 23 or 24 MPs and he only has 21 cabinet positions, he gives out 21 actual full ministers, and then he takes the other 1, 2, or 3 and he makes them ministers in the ministry. So what's happening there is this. He now can say to somebody who is either a senator, where he has a majority, or somebody who is in the House of Representatives, he can direct how they vote when it comes to making law.
Yes.
So just by virtue of the fact that most of the representatives in the House are beholden to him via the cabinet positions, not the MP positions, the cabinet positions, which are more valuable, more coveted than MP positions.
Yeah.
All right? He is able, or she, is able to control 2 arms of government.
Right.
Right. Now let's take this same system and let's go to England. The winning party in England wins about 300 seats.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. Instead of
41 that we have.
Yeah.
Right? Well, you're winning here, winning about 21, 22, 23. Right. Guess how many cabinet positions they have? At one time we had 21, they had 21. So
And they're multiple times bigger than us.
right. So imagine 300 MPs win, you're the Prime Minister, those are your MPs, right? Members of Parliament, they're just representatives. You give 21 of them cabinet positions. How many of them can you control via cabinet position? 21.
Yeah.
The other 280, if they don't like what you're saying when you're about to try to pass a bill or whatever the case could be, they could literally tell you, hold it, tuntun. They could. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, they can. Yeah.
Right?
They have that.
So you don't actually have control of the 2 arms of government in the same kind of way.
Yeah.
Right? So, I'm saying all that to say this. We in the Caribbean, and you can imagine any island where you just don't have the big, large number, right? So that your cabinet positions put you in that position, right? We got a system from these people, and these people probably jealous when they look at, because they're like, man, I wish I was Prime Minister down there because I have more power and more control down there.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the reason why Hamid Ghani wrote that thing is he's trying to tell you that what the Commonwealth nations are trying to do is maintain the independence of the MPs, because at the end of the day, the voters put them there to represent them, not necessarily the party.
The party.
Right? Now, my point is this. We are in a scenario where our prime ministers have way more control over our MPs and the legislator than they were supposed to have.
Yeah.
So they actually have more power. And what they want is even more power. You understand? I want to control you to the point where if you try to leave, or if you try to oppose me, I could expel you and you lose your position. And my fundamental issue with all of this is this. If we understand the underlying concept with this stuff, which is your MPs need to be at least independent to some degree so that they can represent the people who put them there and whatever the case may be. We want to start having this moral argument now. But we ended up in a scenario where we had more power than was ever intended, and we're still looking for more. And I'm trying to figure out, how is it that regular average people, I mean, I lie on the blog, talk to people sometimes. If you ask the average person, do you think politicians have too much power? The average person will tell you yes. Yet there are people arguing to give them more power. Robinson came after, and everybody knows that Robinson was a scholar. He came after. He looked at it and said, hey, no. We don't want them to have that much power. And we find ourselves in 2022 almost looking like we're trying to go backwards
Yeah.
to give them more power, when you have the very people then who come up with the system meeting around the world to say, hey, no, we need them to be more independent.
Yes.
So what are we doing actually?
So we kind of working against that. And I wanted to frame up what you said with the process as to how the MPs, the leader of the ruling party is automatically prime minister.
Yes.
But in our situation here in Tobago, the chief secretary is elected amongst the assemblymen who were already voted in to office first.
Right.
You understand? And so it's different. Again, fowl and rabbit. It's totally different. And I also take your point also going back, wanting to, and I agree, wanting to maintain your independence. Because if you don't, then you also confer more power to those who already have it. You have something to add to this? To what
Yeah,
you said?
definitely.
You went on for a while.
100% I agree, Mr. Jason Arthur. It is good that we should seek to have our government or sub-government right here in Tobago where no individual has too much power, right? I 100% agree with that sentiment. That being said, let us look at the situation that is in front of us right now. You have 13 assembly persons that would have been elected. More importantly than them being elected under a PDP banner, they would have been elected in large part because of a mandate, right? And whilst that mandate may have been a PDP mandate, the moment they won the election, that mandate was purchased, right, by the people of Tobago, right? So I have no problem with not having another election immediately, so long as they stay within the mandate. Because if they are not staying within the mandate, then what you're going to have is exactly what Mr. Jason Arthur is warning against, and that is a culture of them being too powerful, right? Because now, instead of being restricted to the things that you promised to do, you now have no restrictions whatsoever.
Right.
I also have no problem with these individuals calling themselves independents, right? Because if you're calling yourself independents, it opens the gateway to independent thinking.
Mr. James would vehemently disagree with you on that independent term.
What I do have a problem with is you calling yourself an independent collective.
Okay.
Because that is an oxymoron, right? And I feel a bit insulted that they would have even attempted to put that on the Tobago people, because if we did not have bright minds amongst us, they would have ran with that. They would have ran with that, and they would have had the average man on the ground believing that there is such a thing called an independent collective, and they form the Tobago House of Assembly Executive.
Right.
I am expecting, if you are independent, during THA sittings to hear a variety of opinions coming into the chamber.
But if you have unitary thinking, is
if I'm hearing unitary thinking, then I feel as though I am being further deceived, right? That is the first thing. The second thing is, what I'm not interested in is you calling yourself independent today. We'll forgive the collective talk because, okay, people make mistakes, right? But then 2-3 years down the road, you realize there's an election coming, and now you decide you want to form a party. That is deception, right? And if we allow that kind of deception to pass, then we are giving the government too much power. Look at what is going on in the Tobago House of Assembly today. Yes, the Prime Minister has too much power. The same can be said for the Chief Secretary. Why is it possible for a Chief Secretary, right, who ultimately has power to decide on how that 2.5 billion is spent, is also the Finance Secretary? Is that not a conflict of interest? Is that not too powerful? So what I am suggesting, okay, you would like to continue holding office? You would like us to overlook the fact that there was some betrayal of your political party, there was some betrayal of your constitution, we did see some lawlessness taking place? No problem. Those those issues are all in the past. Let's go forward. And let's go forward on a clean slate, and let's go forward in a situation where we don't see any one individual in the Tobago House of Assembly holding ungodly levels of power, right? And one of the ways that do that, we see a situation which part you would have campaigned that every area in Tobago would have gotten 10 million, and then nonchalantly you come back to the people of Tobago and say that instead of 10 million, you're going to get 150,000. That is 1.5%, less than 2% of what was promised. We the people, and this is why I love what is going on in the Tobago space, in the Tobago political space so much. We the people have to become more politically educated so that we can instruct our employees, because the people who serve in the Tobago House of Assembly executive, they work for us, so that we can instruct our employees, hear what? You and I both know, right? That you lost some moral authority, and they keep using the word moral authority because when it comes to democracy, it is a big moral infringement. You lost some moral infringement, but you know what? We like that idea if you're going to stick to it. If you're really going to have independent thinking, we like that idea. Stay as independents. Let us hear a variety of ideas, etc., being brought to the table. And also, stick to the mandate. Don't come and tell us when was campaign time that you're giving ex gratia payments, and then now, oh, it have a legal situation. Stick to the script. That is what is important at this point.
All right. And so, well, they brought up, and I'm glad they went into that, about the moral standpoint. All right? And we're going into that now. And there has been many commentators across Tobago that would have stated the moral quandary that we have now is that, as Leroy said, you campaigned under a mandate given to you by the political organization, which is the PDP. Now that you are independent, right, are you going to follow that mandate? And if not, if you're not following that mandate, is it now immoral for you, right? Because the people would have bought in on that manifesto, that mandate. Is it now immoral for you to say that you're doing your own thing as an independent when we wanted you to do this thing, and we can't hold you accountable for this thing?
So it seems to me that a number of people are equating the fact that a group of people left an organization with a group of people left an organization and is no longer committed to the ideas of the organization. Okay. I do not know that those are the two same things. Okay? Oftentimes, people leave organizations for two reasons. I no longer believe in the things the organization believed in, right? So that's one. Right. Or I realize that what the organization said it believed in, it doesn't believe. Right. And so I left. Okay. Right? And I don't think anybody can doubt that those two scenarios exist. Right? And so the question for us now is to try to determine which one is it? Yeah. Did they leave because they no longer believe in the mandate of the organization? Or did they believe because did they leave because they believe the organization is not committed to the mandate? And quite frankly, the only way that you can answer that is the same way that you answer the question for all of the elections gone by when people give you a manifesto. To find out if that organization is committed to the manifesto or the mandate or the whatever, you watch them govern. Yeah. And you start checking off. Did they do this? Did they do that? Did they do da. For somebody to tell me that I resign today and tomorrow you know that I'm not committed to my mandate. I mean, it's a facetious kind of thing. You understand? And so, but let's be real. This is politics. Yeah. And people are going to make a mountain out of a molehill and all kinds of stuff and whatever the case may be. I know that at the end of the day, you cannot govern in confusion and a set of old talk and every Monday morning is this and is that and is whatever. And quite frankly, anybody who was truly concerned about this party governing, and I don't mean whether you're for the party or against the party. I mean you're in Tobago and you want them to govern because they're already there.
Yeah.
And you need some order. The best thing they could have done is what they just did. Because we know for a fact, we're not crazy, we sit down here watching it. If you stayed there, confusion evermore. Now, right now, it's looking like more confusion. Well, yeah, to leave, there's be some confusion. But the whole idea is after you leave, eventually, hopefully it should settle. Now, do I think that the set of old talk and whatever is going to continue probably for months and months? Yes.
It will.
It will, right? But guess what? There's a difference between you and I in a house together and one set of old talk from you, which upsetting me. I sit down, I trying to do my computer, my work and whatever, and I can't concentrate or whatever. Versus I leave, I go to the next house. You could show your talk from across the road or wherever, I close my door and I can get my work done.
Right.
And I think for me, that's the analogy I am using.
Okay.
And I'm okay with that.
Right. And what I also heard from what you were saying there is that from a morality standpoint, all right, which is very important, we also have to observe. This thing happened last week, last
Yes.
Monday. The only way, as you said, to be able to know if they're sticking with the mandate is to observe them. I don't know if next January or January month 10 is enough time to observe a 4-year mandate. You understand where I'm coming from?
It's ridiculous.
But sticking with morality, and if we're using morality, we have to use it across the board. We know, right, that everybody is kind of exasperated with elections, right? Elections always bring scars. Populations have to heal. Electorates have to heal after elections. They generally, the political platforms, the peacock, the backstabbing, whatever, it brings out a nasty side in our people, right? Or I would say unavoidably so. And so, in my opinion, those who always calling for election cannot always have the best interest of the electorate at heart. Because if you do, you would know that the electorate is always exasperated by elections. And there's always a division that happens that has to be repaired every single time. So if we have all this election happening in small space of time, what's going to happen to us? All right? What's going to happen to us? You wanted to add in something, Leroy?
Whilst I would have already expressed that I am not interested in an election immediately, I don't think the reason you gave is one I particularly co-signed to, right? My reason for not wanting an election immediately is because if we have an election immediately, whoever wins, there is no reason for that person to change their attitude. It is no secret that the vast majority of Tobagonians were not pleased with the going abouts of the last administration, right? Hence the reason they would have lost so resoundingly, right? We see today that as soon as those 13 assemblymen would have walked away from the political party, immediately the panic button was pressed, right? What happens with the mandate? And the people were justified in pressing the panic button. Because what was happening, just as Mr. Arthur said, you judge them by how they're governing, right? Just as Mr. Arthur said. And so if we were seeing deviations from the mandate taking place, even before you divorced yourself from the organization that formally ties you to the mandate, then of course the people would be foolish, sheepish even, to not make that the front of the issue.
Right.
And I'll take this opportunity to just point out that there is a way for all the people to have a say in this, right? You would have mentioned that I'm the CivilNet corporate secretary, right? Not all the times I do interviews is as corporate secretary, however, but I'm very glad that you happen to bring up that point, because CivilNet is engaging in a poll, right? Unfortunately, I'm going to try to put the link to the poll in the chat right now, where you would be able, as citizens of Tobago, to grade this administration and also the minority council, because there are 1 or 2 questions in that poll that directly refers to the minority council, assemblyman, etc., the assemblyman Kelvin Morris, etc. And so I would suggest that this period be used, right, whether it goes into election or not, be used for us to become again more politically educated and to not just know, but become more vocal about the things we know and expect by participating in that poll and by participating in these types of conversations that we're having.
All right, great. And we will see if we could get that link posted on the page as well, so that Tobagonians could partake. Mr. Arthur, you were talking about, I don't want to misquote you, You were talking about seeing if the mandate is followed, right? And the source of confusion, right? We recently had a discussion on this program where we had sitting assemblymen, which I found was very refreshing, right? They come in the plain clothes, as I would say, right? They came in the plain clothes and they sat in front of the people, and they were very transparent. They talked plain for everybody to hear what exactly was going on that led up to this moment.
Right.
All right? And so you talk about the house of confusion, and they also talked about that confusion, that abuse that they were getting inside of the party, why they had to leave, even though they were so, well, to me, I believe that they were genuine in their dedication to the party when they joined on, right? What do you think about what was said on that program and the process by which they had to leave? Do you think it was justified the way they planned to do it? They said it.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I wasn't there. In fact, Leroy was more there than I ever was, right? Until he wasn't there anymore. You know, but if I'm to take them at their word, I mean, I understand why they left. I'll tell you something. It's ironic to me when I hear people talk about this fissure or this division or this whatever the case may be. You have 14 assemblymen, and 13 of them all left, all at the same time, all in unison.
With the councillors?
With the councillors. Now, of course, some people will say maybe a couple of them were coerced or whatever the case. I don't know. Here's what I do know. All of them but one left together.
Yeah.
And it was one of those occasions where you saw a united front in the fashion you would like to see a united front. Typically when these things happen in parties, it's 3 and 4 different factions. You had this one, you had that one, you had the other one, you had whatever. I said it on Facebook maybe 2 weeks ago. We don't even have 2 factions because one person can't be a faction.
No.
You understand?
Yeah. So we have voices.
So for me, I didn't panic at all. I thought this looked good. Let me tell you why I would have panicked. You see, if it was 11 of them, I'll say something wrong here. Something wrong here. You understand what I'm saying? Something wrong. It wasn't 11. It was all except one.
Yeah.
So, you know, I sat down. I listened to them talk last week. I thought some of the things they said they probably shouldn't have actually necessarily say,
To the public.
But I mean, it is what it is, right? When you're talking and you're being passionate, you say things you're not supposed to say. I mean, I said tuntun a while ago. I don't know, maybe that wouldn't go over well, you know, right? And you know, so but I felt as though they wanted to clear the air as much as possible. Obviously, in clearing the air, they would get licks for it. But sometimes you want to vent, and I can say that they have been very, very, or at least they had been very, very, very disciplined up to that point. And you got to give people a chance, you know what I mean? You got to give people a chance.
Leroy, what do you think about it? Well, as Mr. Arthur said, he was behind the scenes for a while, so you know a good bunch of them personally.
Yes, and what he's speaking specifically about, I was the elections officer for the Progressive Democratic Patriots, the first and only ever elected elections officer on the National Executive Council of the Progressive Democratic Patriots. And so, as he would have indicated, I would have a very clear idea of if there was any adult bullying taking place, right? Whether it was a situation where he, Mr. Watson Duke, the political leader, was the one doing the adult bullying, or whether it was whether it was a cabal of individuals, right? Maybe united by one particular common past or something like that, that would taking advantage and bullying the
assemblyman.
Not the assemblyman, but the political leader.
Okay, the political leader, okay.
Right? Now, it would be improper for me to go into details as to what I would have seen and observed, right, behind closed doors, unless it came to the forefront through some other party and had already become a part of the political conversation.
Okay.
And what I could say is that today I heard Dr. Ned do exactly what they did and brought to the people their argument. And from their argument, he would have insinuated that basically Watson Duke was the victim of bullying.
Okay.
Right? And he would have brought up also one incident where he would have said that Farley basically said, right? The now Chief Secretary, then Assemblyman Farley would have said, listen, either this party have you or it have me, but the two of we can't be here together. Right?
Okay.
To be honest, right, I am pretty sure I know the conversation he's talking about, right? And he paraphrased Farley, right? I did not hear Farley say that to my remembrance, providing that we're talking about the same conversation that I happen to be witness to because I happen to be in that situation, right, as a executive board member. What I do remember is that Mr. Chavez would have attempted to get Watson Solomon Duke off the list of candidates, right? And the entire executive, they would have said, no, that is ridiculous, right? And so that to me was an example of bullying that came into the public space, right? And so I could speak about that, right? So yes, that is the situation right there. As we go forward, however, I think what is most important is that we look at the PDP constitution in the way they do things going forward, and also that if, for whatever reason, and I'm against you calling yourself independents today and then tomorrow starting a party, but I'm sure if they start a party, they're going to have a constitution also. What is important is that you have adherence to the constitution, because adherence to the constitution is what avoids bullying from taking place. Because Mr. Watson Solomon, you could have bullied them by not adhering to the constitution, right? That could have happened. And what happened in the PDP space, and it is without question at this point, it's already in the open, is that on every level, there was not adherence to the constitution. If there was an issue, there was supposed to be an election that was supposed to happen for the latest November the 25th of this year. That did not happen.
In the PDP ranks?
in the PDP ranks. That's the internal election, right?
Okay.
3 years after the 2019, November 25th election. That was supposed to happen. It did not happen, and we did not hear from the political leader, that's Watson Duke, from the then deputy political leaders and now Chief Secretary Farley or anybody. We did not hear anybody trying to adhere to the Constitution. And that to me is very worrying.
Right.
Because that speaks to lawlessness, and we want to bring an end to lawlessness. And one more thing, I remember you even started the program talking about how you had a ticket to go on the boat, etc. But nepotism, lawlessness, that is what brings the glitches in the situation and causes things to go left. That is why we as employers, again, I'll say it again, we need to become more politically educated and hold them accountable to the things they agree to in their constitution, in their mandate. And we're talking about all of them, from Kelvin Morris, Watson Duke, the 13 Assemblymen, Farley, everybody needs to be held accountable.
I like how you bring that full circle to the boat situation.
So I'm just a little bit curious, because it's like I feel like as though Leroy started talking about the conversation that happened, but like he didn't really say what happened. He said Farley didn't say that, but I mean, kind of finish it for me.
Let me state it clearly. I did not hear Farley say, I will leave if Watson don't leave. That I cannot co-sign to. That is what I heard the PDP chairman, Dr. Ned, say today.
Right.
Okay. I cannot co-sign to that.
Right.
Because I did not witness that.
What did you witness?
What I heard, and I'm paraphrasing,
Okay.
right? But with great accuracy,
Right.
is that this is coming from the now Chief Secretary Farley Chavez Augustine, do not want Watson Solomon Duke to be listed amongst the candidates going into this election.
And this would have been the December election last year.
No, that would have been the January election last year. So that is when things would have gone particularly left.
Right.
Right? That was just
this was the
previous
6-6 election we're talking about.
This is the 6-6 election we're talking about. And what I'm saying is, you have a constitution, you have a system, you went out there, you publicly said that we're going to have a screening process, and then after that, we're going to have the action groups elect the persons that they want to be candidates, and so long as you have a passing score on the screening, and also the action group co-sign to you, become a candidate. 1 second, and I'm going to address it.
But I was asking you questions, though.
I want to finish this trend of thought. I'm not giving you way. I want to finish this trend of thought.
All right.
So, with that being said, if we saw an adherence to the rules that were stated, then we wouldn't have that situation, because that conversation should have never been happening
in the first place.
Okay,
go ahead, Mr. Jason.
Right, but it's really questions that I don't know about the situation.
Okay.
So, I mean, you say you were there. Why did...
You said I was there, not I said I was there.
He was privy to the conversation.
You said I was there, and I agreed.
The man said he's paraphrasing with great accuracy, so I'm assuming...
With great accuracy, yes, I was present.
Right. So you were there, just, okay. Anyways, so why did Farley say that to him?
Right. So the particular incident, oh no, I'm not going to state that. And the reason why I'm not going to state that, I was going to state it. The reason I'm not going to state it, remember I said earlier, it would be improper of me to bring anything,
to bring the extra
into the conversation that is already out there, because it would have happened behind closed doors. What I could say, right? It was very trivial.
Okay, I got
it. It was petty.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Whew. Again, too small an island for all this bacchanal. All right. But again, I feel
it's just the right size for the bacchanal.
Just the right size. I love it. However, these things must be aired out, and I feel honored. Gentlemen, I feel honored to have shared this panel with you tonight and to have this fruitful discussion put out into the Tobago space, and to have the viewers what you think, all right? And I would be very excited to go through the comments after and hear what the viewers would have said about what you guys particularly had to say, all right? But as it is, we have come to the end of our program this week, all right? So we will see you again next week. Do we have a program next? We should have a program next week. All right. And I have been Edison Thomas. This is For the Hour. Remember, Port Authority, get your actions right. But I will see you next week.